All right, in this lecture, we're going to talk about how hard should your curveball be to create maximum deception. So, answer simple, as hard as you can possibly throw it. And I know it's easier said than done. So when I was still pitching, I knew that my curveball needed to be in the upper 70s when I was on the mound in a game. And in preseason, I'd throw 4 or 5 miles per hour slower than my max in a game. And I had a goal. My goal was always that it was above 70, 72 in practice. So when I'd start out, as I was getting ready, ramping up for the season, to be like 65, 66, 67, that felt hard. But I told myself, no, for a fact it's got to be 72. Get it to 72. Throw the ball harder. Throw the ball harder. It's an intensity thing, but you just have to get your mindset right and just keep that velocity climbing. So specifically, we're looking for 20% or less reduction. So that means if you throw 100, no slower than 80, and hopefully around 85. So again, 15% is the ideal, I think, and 20% is kind of the limit, where if it gets slower than that, it starts to really get loopy and they can see a difference. So here's some sample speeds on the left here. Fastballs, like high school speeds, 70, 75, and 80. 56 to 60 if you're throwing 70, 60 to 65 if you're throwing 75. And if you're throwing 80, 64 to 68, something like that. Those are good ranges. And you want to try to be at the top end. The bottom end of that is 20%. The top end of that is 15%. If you're in the college range, 84 to 88, 67 to 72, you're creeping into the 70s, which is excellent. And then if you're in the pro ranks, or still college ranks for guys that throw really hard, 92 miles per hour, 73 to 79, somewhere in that range, mid to upper 70s. And if you're a 95 guy, you're creeping towards 80, and hopefully you can throw that magical like 80 mile per hour curveball, which is incredibly hard. I can't imagine hitters can hit that stuff. So slower, I've heard this, and this is a good question. Well, I thought you should throw curveballs slower because it helps them get on their front foot. Well, that's true, but only really for bad hitters. Bad hitters, they have no good. They're not good at anything. They can't keep their backside. They can't keep their weight back. They can't do anything. So when you're young, slow curveballs work because kids lunge at it, but good hitters don't do that, and that's the wrong way to go about it, because we'll talk about trajectory in a second, but our goal is to trick their eyes and their brain, and slowness doesn't do that. We want to force our fastball down, or our curveball down the same starting trajectory as long as we can, so it looks like a fastball as long as possible before it breaks. And then their brain just doesn't get it. And that's what makes it look like it has a sharp break, even though curveballs break gradually the entire way. So the harder the better. The harder we throw it, the more it looks like a fastball longer before it breaks. And that will trick hitters whether on their front foot or on whether they're not. It doesn't rely on only that sort of little league, get them on their front foot kind of thing. Obviously, big league hitters still get on their front foot sometimes, but they're really getting deceived by the break of it because of how hard it is and how much it looks like a fastball. All right. So here's the trajectory I kind of mapped out here for you. So the gray is the fastball, kind of a slow, gradual decline. And the curveball, if you throw really slow, will pop up like that. For them to end the same ending location, the curveball has to go up because it has break, right? It's going to break, so it's got to be that much higher. So when you throw really slow, it has a much bigger hump in its trajectory to end up in the same spot, right? They look very different, especially as hitters get more and more seasoned and experienced. When you throw a curveball harder, they start to match longer. They'll never completely match. They'll always be a little bit different. And in this location, what you'll see here that's different than this past slide is these are ending in different locations. If you throw a curveball that ends in the same spot as the previous pitch, the previous fastball, it has to go in a different trajectory to end in the same spot to account for the break. But here, when we throw two curveballs that quote-unquote tunnel, they're going down the same initial trajectory, and then the curveball veers off, so they won't end in the same ending location. They'll start in the same starting trajectory, they'll end in a different location. The fastball would stay up, the curveball would go down. But when we throw them harder, you can see these two lines earlier match longer before the curveball starts to bend closer to the end of its path. All right. So we want to force it down the fastball's path longer. That's really just the biggest thing. You want to throw it as hard as you can to force it down the fastball's path. And when you force it down the fastball's path, the hitter's brain thinks fastball. It's really relatively simple. And by the time they commit to it, they then realize it's the wrong pitch and it's too late. So again, correct speed change, no slower than 20%. Ideal is closer to 15%. Throw it as hard as you can possibly throw it. And when you think you're throwing it when you think you're throwing it hard enough, throw it a little bit harder. All right, that's it. Pretty cut and dry. Throw that curveball hard.